is that if you can, type in your name in the chat. We'd like to see who's all here. And we're still, I think, getting people admitted from the waiting room as quickly as we can. So again, type your name in the chat. Please remain muted during the presentation to prevent any feedback. If you're having trouble with internet connection or a glitchy video, a tip is turn off your camera if you have it on. We will have some Q&A breaks throughout the presentation. During that time, you can ask any questions. You should be able to unmute. If not, raise your hand and we can get that taken care of. And if anytime during the presentation you have a question that pops up, you can please just go ahead and type it in the chat or write it down to then ask during the question and answer breaks. If time is running short, so if we're looking to go over by about 15 minutes past noon, I just ask that you email any questions. You can email them to me and then we can get right back to you. We know and understand that there may be a lot of questions and we want to make sure that we give time for everybody to at least ask or have them answered. With that, we'll get started. Thank you all for signing up and registering to attend our first virtual grant writing workshop. This is kind of all new to me, and so we're doing, if there are some technical difficulties through this, please just bear with us as we are figuring this out as well. There will be a couple of polls throughout the session. Please feel free to answer those. And Jasmine is acting as my kind of moderator, and she will be facilitating the question and answer sessions while I get the next sessions ready, and ready for the presentations. And that. So with that, we'll get started. We're just gonna, the first one we're gonna go over is just the Noxious Weed Trust Fund program itself. Kind of just give you a little bit of basic information about the program, and then we're gonna go into a little more information about giving you a 101 on the fundingmt.gov, and then we're gonna go into grant applications. So with that, we'll start. The Noxious Weed Trust Fund was established in 1985. It was facilitated by the Department of Agriculture staff. And the funding from this program comes from vehicle registration, interest off of $10 million trust. So anything over that that's accrued then goes back into the program. The general fund, cooperative forestry programs, and also MDT pass-through funds. Funding recipients are community groups, tribes, educators, researchers, and counties. Collaborating organizations are weed districts, universities, counties or tribes, extension offices, and conservation districts. There can be other agencies as well. These collaborating agencies also help and kind of sponsor programs, or can help work with local cooperators to do, can work with CWMAs or county weed management, cooperative weed management groups to then put in applications. Types of grants are emergency grants. This year's one has already closed. The emergency grants are closed November 1st. And then we have special county reservation grants, MDT funding, and Noxious Weed Trust Fund grants. The county reservation funds are for county weed districts and tribal reservations, and it allows them to help provide materials for their programs. and that cost amount is for $7,500. The emergency grants are just for natural disasters such as fires or floods, and to start groundwork for those, and they also can be for new invaders. These grants are usually a starter, kind of to get your, maybe a way to jumpstart to then, which may lead to applying for a local cooperative grant. These grants have a max funding request of $25,000, unlike the other grant funding opportunities, except for the special county reservation ones. All other trust fund projects are, can request up to $75,000. So here are some of the trust fund explaining what these grants are a little bit. We have education and development grants. Those can be for planning, mapping, monitoring, or education. An example of one of these would be our Montana State Noxious Weed Education Campaign program. We also do research grants. These can be chemical research, non-chemical, biocontrol, or integrated weed management practices. Some biocontrol, an example of that is we are looking at one that was awarded last year was to the University of Idaho regarding looking at a new insects for rush skeleton weed. The noxious weed, moving into our local cooperatives, and these are, they're on the ground treatments through a CWMA, so a cooperative weed management area. And these are usually can include mapping, biological control, grazing, and revegetation. They are a 50-50 cost share for herbicide, whether it be to purchase or through use of a commercial applicator, and can also include revegetation or seed. For any new projects, these require a environmental assessment, which we will go over this afternoon in more detail. So please, if you're looking at a local cooperative, whether it's something that's new or even continuing, please attend that session. It will be very good. So EAs can also be, are not just only required, or excuse me, EAs are required for new projects. However, if you have a current project and are looking to either add a chemical or even expand your boundary, you will need to provide an updated environmental assessment to address the new herbicide and the new project area. So in the past years, the number of awards over the last 5 years have kind of fluctuated. We average about 200 a year. However, last year we did see a drop, and we average award about $2 million as far as our projects, and last year was over 2.25 million, again over a 5-year period. The application process does require planning and organization to get participants, whether it is through especially your local cooperatives. You need to have time to reach out to prospective participants, have landowner meetings, do some mapping and take photos, treatment options, so planning whether you're going to use ground, aerial, anything like that, and then ultimately, which will then lead to a WebGrants application submittal. The planning process does take some time. You need to have, especially when you're working with looking into doing a landowner or a local cooperative, you need to have a landowner meeting, and that's pretty important. One of the new requirements this year, which we'll go over in grant forms in a little bit more detail, is that you need to have a signed interest form from anybody who's wanting to participate. And so you need to talk to your landowners. You need to send them maybe a weed management plan or a cooperator interest form and get their commitment. So that commitment needs to happen so that you are able to see kind of what dollar amounts you're looking at and what weeds are going to be treated, and even potentially what herbicides you're going to be needing to request in the grant. So that includes how many acres you're going to treat, what products, the type of application, and how much are they willing to spend. You need to have a defined boundary area, so maybe not too big and not too small. There needs, at least for a local cooperative, you need to have a minimum of 3 adjacent property owners to form a local co-op or CWMA in order to be eligible to apply for a local cooperative, either new or a continuing project. Explain the requirements and clearly define those goals and objectives to the potential participants. And that will help with defining what is reimbursable, the time sensitive objects, whether it's reporting, you need to keep records and submit receipts, you need to do mapping, and there's going to be more emphasis on mapping. Photo points are great to show the changes at a site, especially where you treat, revisit, education, and also grant hearings. A part of that is that you need to provide us too, is get a history of the area. We want to know maybe what's been done in the past, what other treatments have been done in the area, whether that's grazing, biocontrol, or maybe you even have some non-compliance, especially if you're maybe in the weed district wanting to try to help get education out there, and maybe some folks that you've had struggled with in the past, maybe not doing something, maybe that non-compliance is opening the door for a potential opportunity for a grant for them to participate in a project such as a local cooperative. What can you be reimbursed for? Well, you can be reimbursed for supplies and materials, travel at state rates, grazing, seed, reseeding costs, herbicides, again, state bid. Last year we had a 50% cap kind of on our herbicide pricing. Please, when we go over the forms, you need to use the state bid or explain why you're over that. Again, look at herbicide application costs, and that is like labor. You can have up to a 3% administrative cost if eligible, and what would be eligible is for maybe a county that doesn't get, or county or reservation that doesn't get or doesn't receive a county special county reservation grant. That area would be potentially could apply for administrative costs. For grant hearings, these will be taking place the week of March 8th through the 12th. Grant hearings are 15 minutes, so presentation should be 10 minutes, then allow for 5 minutes of questions by the council. About anywhere from about 3 to 4 weeks after, once grant hearings are completed, then and the decision then is recommendations are then sent to the director, and once those are approved, contracts will then be sent out, letting you know that you are ready to begin your project. So complete plan, activities, and meet project objectives. You need to have record keeping, site visits, and status reports and claims. Currently, we are in the tail end of status, or next Monday is when status reports are due. We look to have some more training in the new year regarding these, so that will better help those that are awarded grants to be able to know what we're looking for and better provide that information once you've been awarded a project or grant. Start off right, set the budget up correctly, appropriate categories. Try to get correct amounts if you can. You can deviate by 10% of the allowed budget categories, and that's not the 10% of each line item, it's the 10% of what that project has been awarded. So if you were awarded a $10,000 grant, you can deviate by $1,000 in a category without doing a budget amendment. Communication is key between your coordinator and the project participants. So if a grant was applied through a county weed district, the project coordinator would be the county weed district person and who would work with the project participants. Be clear in your allowable expenses, your allowable herbicides, and required receipt documentation. I will say pay close attention to your herbicides, and make sure that what you put in the grant, what you put in as your herbicide worksheet is what you use, and maintain and keep accurate records and complete records. Project successes, this is just, photos help out so much. So you can take a photo, see what it looked like before treatment, and then you can take a photo and see what it looks like after treatment. It's a great way to document your projects. So for research, some samples of research type of stuff that has been done for research. We've done a lot of through biocontrol, which then, with the ultimate goal of some of those then being released, allowed to be released or approved for release, excuse me, to then go on treat noxious weeds for a variety of different things. Like I said, we have a new one for biocontrol on the rush skeleton weed, and we've also done research for grazing projects, secondary infestations, and also again developing new biocontrols. Education and development, here's some examples of that. We've funded the Whitehall Insectary, Madison County Biocontrol Coordination Project, public outreach and education, the Ready Set Action videos, many of you seen from MWCA on Facebook and through social media. Those are great videos. Youth Forestry Monitoring Program, and the Montana Noxious Weed Education Campaign. We also have weed management tools. So this is coordinator training, again, AdMaps West or AdMaps Pro. Again, training will be set up for those in the new year, and also Weed ID and integrated weed management strategies. The pesticide training program is having a lot of trainings virtual this year, so you can go to their website and check that out as well. Some examples of local cooperatives for Central Montana. We have the Golden Creek, Chico, and multiple different others, and some of those you may recognize as your own from those attending today. And then from Western Montana, we have Big Hole, Wise River, and Wada Marshall in Missoula County. For Eastern Montana, we have stuff in Carter County. We have grants in Carter County. We have some in Custer County, and we've even done a few years back, we've had some in Valley County. New invader projects we fund through Trust Fund are Rush Skeleton Weed, Dyer's Wood, Tansy Ragwort, and Blue Weed. And you can see some of the pictures there from various visits of what we've done or what has been done. So important updates. As I said, the emergency applications that term has passed. However, we are getting the due date for those that have existing projects. Status reports are due on November 30th, April 15th for all research and education projects. Due date for grant applications is January 6th they close at 11:59 p.m. That also goes the same for special county reservation, or excuse me, special county and reservation applications. And our grant hearings this year will be held virtually, again, March 8th through the 12th. Once applications are submitted, your date for those hearings, you'll be contacted for that. And then after that is contract return dates and things like that to get your project ready. And Jasmine, are there any questions at this time? And you can either ask in the chat or unmute. And I'll get the next presentation ready to go.
Yes, Charlotte, she asked, is there a template for the cooperator interest forms? And yes, there is. There's a template right in the application. that you can click on?
Yes,
what's in the
great
forms?
question. There are all templates, and actually we'll show where those are at on the funding opportunity. And all of the forms that you'll need will also be available on our website as well. So we'll have samples of the Cooperator interest form, a template for that. Feel free to tweak it to your own organization or agency, as well as the same with the weed management plan that's also there. Feel free to then use it and tweak it for your agency as well. Thank you, Charla. Great question. Thank you for your patience. All right. Okay. Any other questions? All right. All right. Well, we'll get moving on to the funding mt.gov 101. All right. This is the web grant system overview. So you can find, you can go on our website and you can go and visit the trust fund information there, which the easiest way to get there is go to agr.mt.gov and you'll see this pretty page there. And then you'll want to click on topics. Once you've clicked on topics, you'll go down and find Noxious Weed Trust Fund grants and click that. And then you'll see a page like this where you will see an overview about the project, about the trust fund. You'll see tabs for applying, instructions, funding history, and advisory council. You'll see up and coming events, important dates, and grant files and resources can be found here. Key thing to pay very close attention to is this important dates, as we mentioned in the previous, as I mentioned in the previous slideshow, or in the previous slide, is that really you want to pay attention to these here when status reports are due for all projects. And again, applications are due, and grant hearings when those will be, and we'll be updating that, and so on. So on the instructions tabs is where you really will find a lot of the meat of the details and instructions for trust fund grants. You'll see WebGrants instructions, you'll find environmental assessment instructions, you'll find claim instructions along with current claim receipts, status reports, budget revisions, extension requests, current year state bid costs, and of course, the grant writing workshop files. So that's the area that you'll want to look for. And I have all of you, I believe, on an email list. And so once the videos from this training are posted, which I hope to have next week, these will go, the files will show up in that workshop files section. Again, you see the grant writing tutorials on how-tos. You'll see the weed management plan and any files. This will also be where you'll find the grantee or grant interest form as well, or cooperator interest form, project evaluations, there's a lot to this portion of the website. So WebGrants, there are Montana Grants and Loans, aka WebGrants and Registration. Well, most of you may have, may have registered for WebGrants. In case you haven't, you want to do, this is what this website looks like. Last year we had a couple web changes and address changes, but where you want to go is that funding.mt.gov, and that will take you to that Montana Grants and Loans page, where you can, you'll see the announcements that will tell you all, to kind of go through the basic funding opportunities for that. If you have an account, you will type in your user ID. If you forgot your password, you can click on Forgot Password, and an email will be sent to you with a temporary password to reset that and get you into your account. Excuse me. And if you don't have an account, you will do the you will click on the registered here, and this is what the page that will show up. Okay, so all required fields have a red asterisk, which is visible right on this side, on that left side before the text area. And you will want to put in your phone number, please no dashes, or in the fax numbers or phone numbers. And where you see what agency, grant, program are you interested in, you will want to click the drop down and you'll want to select Department of Agriculture. Once you've completed this page, you'll click register, and then an email will be sent, and we will be notified that we have a new registered or a new registration request. And once you've been approved, once you get your login information, you will be able to see, you'll see this menu on your main menu, and you'll have a menu option, which will take you back to this area here. This is kind of your home screen. You'll have a help, and you'll have log out, and you'll also have a back button. When you're looking to start a new application, the part you want to go to is funding opportunities. Once you've clicked funding opportunities, you will see a whole bunch of not just Department of Agriculture funding opportunities. So if you're looking for a trust fund application or trust fund opportunity, you look for the AGR Noxious Food Trust Fund, and you'll see 2021, and all those categories will be what you see and what will be available, minus the emergency grant, as that one has closed. So you'll then want to click to know in WebGrants, anytime you see blue text like this, it's clickable. It'll take you somewhere. It will do something, whether it's a link to a website or whether it's a link to a document, or in this case, will take you to the funding opportunity. So once you click the application you wish, or the funding opportunity you wish to apply for, it's going to open you up into an opportunity details. So you're going to see the start date, the award range, so you can request for anything between $0 and $75,000. It tells you when the application closes. It gives you the contact information for the program person, and it also gives you a description of the funding opportunity itself. And again, blue text means that takes you somewhere. So this will take you to grant guidelines, and this will take you to the Department of Agriculture website. Part of that, on the lower part of that funding opportunity, you're going to see attachments. So these are the documents too of what will be available through the website, will also be attached here. So you'll have EA resources, grant participant management plan. You'll see the cooperator interest form, and you'll also see there's links for more information or more tools that will help you with your application. Once you're ready, and you're ready to start an application, you'll go right up here and you'll click start. And here are some of the resources that you can use. that are available to you. A lot of these meetings are now virtual. So be checking those out. I believe the MWCA annual meeting or conference will be virtual, and I believe it to be at the end of January. Some of the fall and spring coordinator trainings have been a little bit delayed, again, due to COVID. This has made things very interesting as far as that, but be looking out for training opportunities. And you can also use the Department of Agriculture as a resource. And we can point you to more training. Like I said, in the new year, we look to have do some more training, both for mapping and for reporting and claims and so on. Ooh. All right, that was kind of a quick session, and we'll open it up again for any questions. Okay. Any questions? You can you should be able to unmute.
Hi, this is Charla Sackman.
If not, you can type your questions in the chat.
Hi, this is Charla. Okay, thank you. And maybe you'll cover this after a little bit, but I want to make sure I asked it.
I see we do have a question.
Would a
grant application be appropriate for a homeowners association?
I'll type it in.
As landowners with 10 acres, or should the association work with the county weed board? I would say they may want to work with the oh, Jasmine jumped on there. Perfect. Thanks, Jasmine. Perfect. And let's see. I'm gonna get the other presentation open. And any other questions? Can someone try unmuting themselves in chat? I see a question from Charlotte. We have an existing grant project and would like to add an additional area to the project. Is that considered a new project or continuing? I'd say if it is next to or just outside your current project area, you can do a continuing and then just do update your environmental assessment to include that expanded area, both for your herbicides and also you'll need to do kind of like a mini version of an environmental assessment for that new project area. Perfect. And again, thank you for your patience. Do we have any more questions? Great questions too. I will actually include the amended EA form, and I will include that in the files. It should also be maybe on the website, but if not, Charlotte, just go ahead and send me an email and I will send you the Word document to do that. Okay. All right, so we're scooting right along. And again, please feel free to ask questions. And Jasmine has been really good at answering them in the chat for me. Sometimes I may repeat, but I thank you for your patience, as this is kind of still a little new for me. All right, we're going to move into grant applications or grant form applications. And so kind of how I plan on doing this is we're going to go from the perspective of coming from and saying, because their beefiest application is our local cooperatives. So we're going to kind of come from it from that perspective, as some of the forms are similar with education and research. However, those that are different, and when they differ, I will highlight those. And then at the end, we will address any forms specific to education and development grant applications, as well as research that may not have been addressed throughout the rest of this presentation. Excuse me. So again, once you get into that funding opportunity, you're going to see the details. And where you're going to be able to start is right up here in the upper right corner that says start a new application. If you haven't had, say, if you haven't had an existing project before and you want to click the start a new application, you're starting with a blank everything. So you'll have to enter in everything. If you have an existing project, you can use the copy existing application. However, please make sure you go in and revisit each individual form to make sure the information, one, did transfer, and if you need to update that. As you can see here, we have the attachments, we have resource links, and again, you have that funding opportunity description. Each description is different for each type of grant, and it explains maybe the requirements, what you need, and what all that detail is. So once you click on a new application, start a new application, it's going to open this window up, which is the general information window. You're going to see information for primary contact. You're going to see any additional grantee contacts. So say in this case, I'm the primary contact, but say if I was working with Jasmine or Carol, I could select both of their names and have them have access to be able to see the application as well. You're going to enter your project title. I will say, please keep your project title short and sweet. If it is a continuing project, we highly recommend that you use the same name that you have in the past and either put phase 2, 3, 4, whatever, or put the year at the end of that, just to distinguish that it's different. However, that it's still a part of the same original project. This goes for research as well. Please keep project title names under, again, 10 words, or have it be the same as what, have it be the same and just either put the year or a phase on it. It makes it a lot easier when it comes to the final or contracts or creating as that project, if that gets awarded. It's a lot easier to type a 10 named title project title than it is to have a 20 or 30 word project title. So if those are the case and that happens, be looking that I'll be reaching out to you to try to slim that down or consolidate that title. Once you get this done, you'll go up and you'll click save, and then it will either take you back to the application forms or you'll click go to application forms. So just kind of some basics of some of the key features that you will need to know, or key things to know while you're filling out the application. As you can see across the top, you have the menu, help, log out, and back, and you have some grayed out items like print, add, delete, edit, and then save. Save is going to be your best friend. Save, as soon as you're done editing something, hit the save button. On the application forms, what you'll see is also that mark is complete, or go back to the application forms, which will take you kind of back to your application main menu, so to speak. So the other option that you'll see is that edit, okay? It's that pencil with the paper that you'll see that, or you may see this add button, which we'll see it ungrayed out later on, but you'll either do edit or you'll see an add. And so that is pretty key. If one is grayed out, that means the other is available to you. Next on the application forms, you'll see application details, submit and withdraw. When you're ready to submit, you'll click that and off your application goes. To make sure that you need to, that if you have a section or you have a form done, once you've marked it complete, you will see the check mark as shown here. Once you have all those checked, then you're ready to submit. Okay, so let's move then into, once we've completed that, we're going to go into our project information. Again, looking at it from the perspective of local cooperative application for project information. So you're going to click that, and it's going to open this form. So you're going to be, again, all required fields have that red asterisk. You're going to complete, up here it's asking for the presenter of the Noxious Weed Trust Fund. So who's going to be the person who's going to be presenting this virtually this year for the hearings. And you're going to then highlight under the project description, you're going to click on whether it's mapping, grazing, file control, herbicide, so on. It can be multiple, I believe. And then you're going to mark whether this is eligible for special funding, which we'll cover that in just a minute. And then down at towards the bottom there, you're going to see areas here for your longitude and latitude. You're going to take that point from the center of your project. Okay, so we'll go over and I'll show you what that looks like using the Natural Heritage Program. You can do that also using Google Earth, Google Maps, any mapping thing that you can get a coordinate, like take your mouse, leave it there and get a coordinate off of, and you can put it in this area. For any research project or education project, this is what that project information will look like for those applications. So again, you're going to have the presenter for the Noxious Weed Trust Fund. You're going to enter them in there. And you're also going to provide a brief description of your application or that project. And under project type, it's either going to be new or it's going to be continuing. This just helps signal to us as if it's something that, whether it's a new project or a continuing project, it's good for us to know. So then flipping back to the local cooperative portion of that form is you're going to see, well, what is the special funding? Well, for special funding, those are the options, and you see that we have cooperative forestry assistance, and we also have greater sage grouse funding. The greater sage grouse funding is nearing, is getting close to being all used up. However, I'll show you in a map, the map that would be, you can look at to see if you're eligible for that. At this point, it's still good that if you are to mark that, just in case we do have some funds left over. If you need any assistance on any window, you can go up and click the help option, and it will give you will better walk you through on how to enter these portions, or it will give you, again, this description for special funding. So this is the greater sage grouse kind of map. And so if you fall in with any of these colored areas here, you are eligible for that funding. Here is what we'll go into a little bit more detail this afternoon on how to use map, natural heritage map viewer. This mapping program is pretty neat, and it's a very useful tool, especially for what we need it for. As you can see in the upper green bar by that blue arrow, you'll see that it's pointing to that Latin long. So you want to make sure that you take your mouse, you highlight it, don't wiggle it, or you'll get new coordinates. Find your middle point, leave it there, write down those numbers to then use it and put it under your project information. Okay, so once you get that completed, you're going to then go hit save, mark as complete. And now we're going to go on into the project overview for a local cooperative. Again, you'll kind of, as you complete sections, if you mark them as complete, you'll see a check mark, say you're not done, but you have done some work. You'll see the date here so that you know you've entered information, but then it's still not quite done or ready yet. So moving on to project overview. So your project overview is, you're just going to follow the instructions here. You're going to, we highly recommend that any of the text fields that you type them into Word. As you can see underneath here, you do have a character limit. So typing the information into Word, you will be able to track how many characters your narrative is for these components. Highly recommend to do that for throughout your whole application. It is just then once you have it ready, you can copy and you can paste that into those narrative locations. If by chance your verbiage does exceed that limit, see if you can tailor it down so it fits. But however, if it doesn't, you can always say see attached project overview, and you can attach that in the other attachments. You also, on this page, you also have a project map with boundaries. I will say again, maps, I will say maps should have legends. So the better that you can, if you provide us a map, we want to be able to interpret that map. So if you have a red boundary line or a blue boundary line, that at least that's noted there somewhere so that we can know what things are symbolized on that map. You'll want to enter your high priority weeds. You should then use this to help select your herbicides and make sure those herbicides that you use on your worksheet or in the herbicide worksheet reflect the weeds, your high priority weeds. The weeds for this area should also, the weeds that you can list in this area can be state listed noxious weeds and county listed noxious weeds. If the weed that you're looking to treat is not that, then either it may not be, you won't be able to apply for it at this time. However, you may want to work with your county agency to then maybe see if it is something that they want to look at adding. Again, you then just, when this is all ready, you click save and go on. Here's some examples of project maps. This is through Google Earth. You clearly see the project boundary and you see a point, an approximate center point. We've also have seen project maps that have come on paper. So it doesn't matter how it comes. It just, again, needs to be something where we can see clear boundaries of the project area or the CWMA. So a project overview for both education and development. So this is what we're looking for here on an education grant. And in this select grant request type, you're gonna look at selecting whether it's an education grant or it's a development grant. This just helps us kind of clue in what type of project you're asking for or applying for. You're gonna put in your education need. Again, you see a very important feature, blue text that connects you to the state weed management plan. So this is pay close attention to on education and development projects, is you'll want to pull this up and look at Appendix A and see how your project, you want to describe how your project will attain those tasks outlined in that area. You want to talk about your project development, and you want to do any related education to and public awareness. How would you get notify the public, or how would you educate the public regarding to take action on these noxious weeds or whatever that may be? And you also want to have project outcomes, and you want to be able to describe how this information could be used by future weed managers. Okay, so project overview for research applications. Again, you'll see blue text, ding ding, pay close attention, and that in this description you'll see one or more of 6 research areas listed. So you'll want to go look up the state weed management plan. You want to look at the research and see what part of your projects of those 6 areas, research areas, your project will fit, and try to highlight and explain using those 6 things and how your project will relate to those and address those. Then you have project development, any related research. So if there's anything that relates to your possible project, you want to put in there. Any effects on natural resources, and again, also project outcomes. Cooperators. So as I've kind of highlighted a little bit before, is that cooperators, this is pretty similar with some minor changes for local cooperative applications. However, research and the top part of this, both research and education, have this similar form. So you'll see this cooperators part where you see the cooperator type, name, and commitment. That's same for all projects, and the cooperator type is, so say if it's BLM, if you're having them participate, if it's a private landowner, anything like that, you'll enter this here. For each individual entry, you'll need to click that add button that's highlighted in the upper right and type in the entry, hit save, and you'll have to do this for however many cooperators you have. So in addition to that, for where things differ for local cooperatives is that you'll see this participation section. Okay, and again, local cooperatives, for all projects, we need a minimum of 3 cooperators, and for local cooperatives, those cooperators need to be adjacent to each other. So this percentage of landowner participation, I can easily kind of describe it as an example. Say my project area encompasses 10,000 acres. Of that, I have, and in those 10,000 acres, say there's 20 landowners. Of those 20 landowners, I have 5 landowners that I have talked with and are on board with this project, who are on board with this project. However, those 5 landowners are technically, for landowner participation, is 25%. So they're 25% of the 20 landowners are participating. However, if this is where you would enter this part, say, if those 5 landowners then own 80% of that 10,000 acres, that's huge. That gives a whole nother picture. You want to make sure you note that in that description of participation, because 25% says one picture, but when that 25% actually owns 80% of the project area, that's huge. New this year is, again, the signed cooperator interest form. These are required for all participating landowners or all participating agencies or whoever is participating in this project. Is you need to have one of these forms per person. Now, say you submit your application and between now and grant hearing time, you get more people, great. Send me the information, we can easily attach it. Or even after, maybe say your project is awarded, you would still need to get this and it can easily be attached to your project. you don't have these, I will be contacting you to get these. So if you don't attach these and you don't have signed landowner interest form, you will not, it could make an aim for an incomplete application. Once you complete this section, you'll hit save, and then you'll go back to your application forms. Weed management plan is the next form. So in this area, under the weed management plan, we're wanting you to provide us a CWMA background. So tell us a little bit about your project area. We want you to then include goals. So what are the goals? Short-term, long-term, and explain that. So your cooperator interest form has bits and pieces of that. And lower down on this form, there's also a template for a weed management plan. If you have participants do that, that's going to help you formulate this portion or this section of the form. We also want to know what other integrated weed management tools that you're going to be using within this project area. As you can see, there's prevention, biocontrol, cultural control, chemical control, and any others. When you click edit, what you're going to see here is you're going to see a yes and no, and then and a field to also type. Then if you have anything else to add in as far as integrated weed management, you can type it in that character box there. The lower portion of this form then goes in and talks about monitoring. So annual monitoring, you're going to need to monitor. We want to know, we want to be able, so that we want for you to be able to track your success or your effectiveness of your noxious weed treatments, and also mapping. Mapping is huge. I will say, especially for continuing projects, this is going to be big. And so here you'll see that we have a new, where you're going to upload your weed map for your project area. Now, I know that new projects, there may not be a whole lot, new local cooperatives, you may not have a whole lot of information. What I'd ask you to is work with your landowners or participants and say, okay, if we were to get funded, what would be the first area you would treat? And if they can provide you at least a starter information regarding that, then that's what you can use to provide mapping and provide information regarding those areas, and you can attach the weed maps for that. We talked about weed management plans. Well, this is not required. It's bonus points. Think of it as bonus points. You attach weed management plans for landowners. This is where it would go. And the comments from the council last time, they really liked seeing these. So if you have these for all your grant participants or prospective participants, you may not need the interest form, commitment interest form, because a lot of that information in the weed management plan, this is a lot more detail is in there, whereas the commitment of interest form is pretty short and sweet, and it's 2 pages, has the basic information, where this has more detail. All right, I know we're coming up here on a question session, so moving on to the plan of work. So when you click on the plan of work, whoa, sorry about that. It's gonna open to this. Now, this is similar through all grant applications. So under a local cooperative, it's called plan of work. Under research and education, it's called activities and education timeline. Okay, as you can see, there's a new, kind of a new field there. In that planned project activities is you're going to click the add button or add text up there, right? So once you do that, you're going to get a window that looks like this. And you're going to have time period, you're going to have to select months, and you're going to need to provide the year and a description of that activity. what you're doing here is you're building a timeline of your project activities from the time, from April 1st through the end of your grant term. Grants are active for 18 months. While they strongly encourage that you use all the funds within that first season. So for an example, if grants that were awarded last spring, they used all their funds throughout this 2020 season, and now they're closing those projects out now. If they have remaining funds, they don't need to submit an extension. They then can use those funds into the next season as the grant term goes through October 31st, 2021. So if you do end up needing to use funds to go into that next year, I'll be reaching out to you. However, you want to make sure that you select all the months. So the things you want to do, you can select multiple months, and you can do so by holding the control key and clicking multiple months with your mouse. Once you click save, that item is going to show up just like this down here. Okay, so if you're saying spray work will take place between May through September, you can highlight all those at once. So, and the next portion of this is planned educational events. For this one, you're going to go up and use the edit. And this is going to open up this box. You're going to go, and it's okay to say things are no. You don't need to have planned things, but if you do, you'll click yes, and you'll describe that event. Once you're done with that, you'll click save. And then we're ready for the next round of questions. Somehow. I can't seem to find the question, so I'm. Okay, there we go. And again, thank you, Jasmine. I can't say how much you're helping with keeping the questions going on, or answering the questions on the chat. It is very, very, very helpful. And I sure appreciate that. No, you don't have to have a landowner meeting. I would say without it though, at least either you might want to click yes, and especially during COVID, I've seen things like instead of a landowner meeting, they're reaching out to individuals, calling them and emailing them that way. It's just sometimes depending on your group size or how many you're having active, it's good to have them all in the same place so you can relay the same information. It's not required. It just, a lot of that usually happens too with prep work. I know some grantees in the past have had landowner meetings in the fall and in the spring, or in the spring and then in the fall. So the spring they would look to plan their projects and get those ready, and maybe even talk about who's going to be needing to use contractors and all that stuff. Or in the fall, then they talk about how the project went. So that's kind of where landowner meetings can come into play. Great question. Yes, Sarah, yes, you can. As Jasmine kind of said, is at any time, if you go back and realize maybe you need to go and change something, you can totally do so. Even say you mark something as complete, if you need to go back into that form, if you need to go back in, you just click edit, tweak what you need to, and then mark, and then hit save, and then mark as complete again. So great questions. All right. Again, thank you all for attending today. I hope so far the information has been good. It's definitely interesting. And hopefully I'm not speaking too fast. All right, we'll continue on. So the biggest portion and most important portion, I feel, besides environmental assessments with these local cooperatives, and the next two forms, both the herbicide worksheet and the revegetation, are strictly for local cooperatives. So we'll start with this. Is before starting the herbicide form, the project coordinator will have to have met and worked with your landowners to coordinate weed control efforts, signed commitment forms of project participants, identified the acres to treat and the weeds, and along with what herbicides those will be. So selecting your herbicides. Herbicides are listed not by trade name or brand name, they are listed by active ingredients. So pay very close attention to that, and I cannot stress and highlight that enough, that you will use for this project. Need to know whether they're, what type of applications those will be, ground, aerial, or if the herbicide will be purchased, the landowner or private applicator will purchase the herbicide and spray do the work themselves, or if they will be hiring somebody to do that. Know the cost and availability if you're using commercial applicators. So what's their labor cost? Will they be able to do, if you do this project and there's a lot of work generated from this, will they be able to handle that work? Read herbicide labels. You will need those to do your EA, and I highly recommend that you print those out and get yourself a highlighter or a light colored marker, as you will need to know the weed species, and it's good to highlight anything that may be pertinent that you can use for the EA. Reimbursements are only provided for herbicides listed and approved on the herbicide worksheet. So again, I cannot stress is make sure what you're putting down is correct. And is the same. So like just an example of that is if somebody put in their application 2,4-D amine, but submitted a claim for 2,4-D ester, we would deny that or deduct the cost of that herbicide from the claim as it was not approved. However, if they put 2,4-D ester down, but use 2,4-D amine, we would accept that because the 2,4-D ester is a lot more volatile and it has a lot more environmental restrictions, so that would be acceptable. Again, make sure that as you're reading the label, you're looking at all active ingredients and you list all of those to make sure you get the right or marking the right and appropriate herbicide. So this is the herbicide worksheet. As you can see, there's multiple sections. There's 4 different sections. You have single herbicide private applicator, and you have a tank mix private applicator. You have single use commercial applicator, and you also have a tank mix applicator. So that the commercial applicator, of course, would be for those that where you would be hiring a contractor to do the work, and private applicator would be the private landowner purchasing that herbicide to then apply themselves. Just a quick thing while we're here at this page, this section down here, These 3 items, both contracted services, private applicator, and acres treated, will autofill. You cannot edit that. It's based on the information that you enter into these categories. So you see on the single herbicide, each section has this, again, blue text, so it links to something important. That you'll click here, and each section has it, is view the Montana State Agriculture Chemical Price List. So you'll click on that, and you will come up with a document that will have a price list. So there's going to be 2 companies that are listed in that price list. We have done the work to break it out by cost per ounce. So you will need to know the rate of your herbicide based on the label to then use the cost per ounce to come up with your application or your herbicide cost. So you'll go up here, click add, and then these will open up so you can see each section has an add, so you can't open up one section to do all of it. You have to go into each individual section to enter that information. Whoops. All right, perfect. So with that is, once you click add, this is the window that will pop up, and you'll use the drop down menu here and select the active ingredient for the herbicide that you want. You'll do the application rate in ounces per acre. You will then come up with the cost, herbicide cost. So you'll take your ounces per acre, or your cost per ounce times your ounce per acre, and to come up with that herbicide cost. If that cost does differ from state pricing, click yes in that area, and please describe why that will be different. You have an option to add additives, so surfactants, and again, come up with the additive cost just like you would the herbicide rates. And again, does that cost differ from state rate? Yes or no? And then you'll want to enter in your application type. So is that going to be aerial, ground, aquatic, or other? Then what weeds are treated with that herbicide? And select all. Again, you'll use that control, and you can click. This is where you want to know how many acres per chemical or per treatment that you're going to use this herbicide, and you'll enter that in the acres treated, and you will click save. This is what the herbicide list looks like on the drive. These are the available herbicides. You will see other. So this is to also handle any new herbicides that are registered and approved for use in Montana, as well as through the EPA. You'll want to look, you'll click other for those that are looking to maybe add, say, indaziflam. You would click other, you come up with a text box, you would put indaziflam, and you'd use the state rates to come up with that pricing. However, if you are using an herbicide that may not have state rates, you can click no, and then you can let us know what that pricing will be on your herbicide worksheet. A way to look at this is if a product, whether to put it listed as a single herbicide or a tank mix, if that herbicide maybe has 2 active ingredients, but it's one label, that's a single herbicide. If you are using 2 products to make 2 labeled products to make a mix, that's a tank mix. So that's the distinguish to distinguish between those 2, and also a key thing to pay attention to. Just again, I will reiterate, active ingredients can make or break something, whether something's approved or not. Is just look at the dicamba here. Is there's a bunch of stuff that has dicamba in it. So if it's straight up dicamba, mark that. But if what you're using has other active ingredients, please, please, please make sure you enter the appropriate active ingredients for that label. We've had to turn people down or have them reduced remove herbicides from their claim because of that. So this is what the tank mix looks like. And again, for both private and commercial tank mix, they're the same, just different options. Use that drop down arrow to select the active ingredients using the control and click feature with your mouse. Combine the ingredients of cost per acre. You'll want to enter in those rates of herbicide using following. So if you did 240 aminopyrrolid, you want to do 32 ounces for 240 and your 7 ounces or 5 ounces of aminopyrrolid, you want to use a slash to distinguish between those and do it in the order of how those herbicides are listed, just to make sure there's no confusion. If there is, I'll be reaching back out to you. Again, you have herbicide additives and you provide the cost of the additive. So a lot of it's very similar as to the single-use herbicide. And again, although with commercial applicator, we have the application cost. This is labor or the price that would be added onto the chemical price. So again, list your weeds, put your acres. I will say that if you're using the same mix for an ground application and then an aerial, please, you will need to have 2 entries and designate which type of application that is, and then add the application cost. The application cost is your labor. So that's important to pay attention to. Okay, and then based on those labels, once you've looked at those and what weeds you're going to be treating, you're going to select all the weeds that are, select the weeds that you will be treating within your project area. Again, using that control and left mouse button and select all the ones that apply. And again, about how many acres are you going to be using with this mixture, this tank mix. Again, something that we'd like to see you do, especially if you're only looking to do labor, is that you also put the herbicide down, but leave the herbicide cost blank. Because we want to see what you're using if you're not requesting reimbursement for that. However, it also will then allow you to put in your labor cost or your application cost if you only want to be reimbursed for that versus the herbicide as well. Okay, once you've finished that and you click save, you're going to go back to the main kind of herbicide worksheet. As you can see, again, blue text means things are clickable. So if you needed to go in and edit this, you would click the blue text of the chlorsulfuron and methylsulfuron methyl. You go in and click that, adjust your rates, adjust your costs, whatever you needed to do to edit that. And then again, click save and it would come back here. So again, your active ingredient, you have your rates, cost for herbicide cost, any surfactants or additives, and so on and so forth. Then you'll see here you have your acres and your amount, total amount, and your 50/50 cost share. This is what will help, what ultimately will be totaled and equal the cost of what you're going to be requesting or applying for. Going down below, you'll see on the lower portion of this, you'll see other county listed noxious other county listed weeds. So these are the ones that are listed within your county that have been approved and as noxious, to be listed as noxious weeds within the county. You can list those additional ones there. Just be sure that you also, those herbicides do cover those specific weeds. So you want to put common ones are musk thistle, common mullein, poison hemlock, things like that, or county listed weeds. And as you see, you won't be able to edit the acres, nor will you be able to edit the total cost share, the 50/50 cost share of contracted services and private applicator. Again, as those are pulled from the information that you've entered up in the upper portion of the worksheet. Once you have completed your herbicide worksheet, you're going to mark complete, and it's going to take you back out to your application forms menu. Next, we're going to go into the revegetation worksheet. Again, this is for local cooperatives. Your revegetation worksheet is going to act similar to that of the herbicide worksheet. As you see, you have the add button. And then you also have a private applicator and you have a commercial applicator. Just like what you would do is once you've clicked add, this window is going to pop up and you're going to enter your seed mix description. Now, seed mix description cannot be dryland seed mix. We want to know what specific species are in that mix. So you're going to have to, if on that sheet or on that seed mix, please try to get that information from wherever you would wish to purchase the seed so that you can list those appropriately. We want to know pounds per acre, seed cost per acre, application type. Again, if you're doing both ground and aerial, you'll need to make 2 entries, and also acres that you're going to reseed. Once you've completed that, you click save. And again, this cost is also a 50-50 cost share for grant. Then we'll go in, then once you've completed that, save and marked it as complete, we're going to go next into the budget. For the budget, we're going to first go off and go over what the budget looks like for a local cooperative. So this is kind of the whole form itself. As you can see, this up here, once you click edit, you're going to have editable fields. You're going to be able to put in dollar amounts, a narrative, so describe those costs, and you're also going to be be able to enter in match funds. The portion of the budget that is not editable, that you will not be able to edit on this form, are any of the herbicide or revegetation information. In order to edit that, you have to go back into those specific worksheets and adjust your amounts or your acres or your costs or whatever to do that there. Then you'll see you have additional match information below. You have both herbicide and revegetation match. So if you're doing something that is maybe related to herbicide costs, but you don't want to have it be reimbursable for the grant, both for herbicide or revegetation, you would put that there. And then you would also have options for any other additional or in-kind match. So we'll go over that here in just a second. So for administrative, you can have administrative fees. However, projects have to be eligible for that. And you can only do up to 3% or $1,000 request. Now, projects that are eligible for this are either counties or reservations who have not received the Special County Reservation Funding Grant, which is a $7,500 that goes towards weed programs. Let's go a little bit more and describe this budget then. So as you can see, you can enter in your dollar amounts, what cost you have, and match funds, right? So first thing you'll see is you have your contracted services non-herbicide. So this would be if you were paying somebody to maybe go do some mowing or maybe plowing or something like that. Something that's a part of your integrated pest management that is not herbicide related, or paying somebody to do that's not herbicide related. You're also looking, you see there's supplies and materials, also not herbicide related. So if you're going to be having like a weed pool and you need to purchase bags, some equipment, or some supplies for that, you can enter that into this area. You have communications and you have travel. Travel includes meals, lodging, and maybe gas or mileage. So with that, those are based on state rates. We will only reimburse state rates. In order to find that, you can go to Google and you can type in Montana state rates and you will find that information. It does change yearly, so please check that, and then any other expenses. Now with this budget, if you enter in match items, you're going to have to provide receipts for those. So anything that is entered in for match in this match narrative or match funds, you're going to have to provide receipts for. So as you're looking and doing your budget for these projects, be thinking about that. What do I have things that are going to be easy to provide that information for, or do I have things that are going to be more difficult to provide for? If they're going to be difficult, you may want to look at putting that information in the additional and in-kind match area versus the match narrative or match funds area in the budget itself. Again, if you put it up there, be ready and be required to submit receipts for and on it, and if your project gets awarded. Once you click save, or once you click save, it'll take you back to your application forms. So let's now move into let's move into education budget and education and research projects budget. You'll see a lot of similarities. We have a grant fund narrative, and we have grant funds, and we have match funds. You'll notice there's two additional some differences, such as you'll see the addition of salaries and benefits, and you'll notice contracted services and supplies materials are now don't have the non-herbicide. So a lot of similarities here, as I previously described, for the local cooperative budget, although now you have specific spots for salaries and benefits. Research and education grants do not require a 50-50 match. However, match can be, again, if you put match in the match narrative or match funds area of the budget, you will be required to provide receipt documentation for that. And so if you do have match in those projects, it is recommended that you put it in the total additional and or in-kind match area. Again, if items are down there, receipt or documentation is not required. So once you've clicked save and you'll save, this will pop up, your full budget, completed budget will pop up. As again, you'll see that you have your entries and what they're for. We're looking for specific descriptions. Again, you'll see your herbicide and revegetation information. Those are, again, are not editable unless you go into their worksheets. If you feel you're ready to go, and once you've looked the total budget area down below, these amounts are what you're going to be requesting for your grant. And you'll see down below, again, that in-kind contribution or additional match information is also shown. Once you review this, if you're ready to go and you feel you have everything ready, go ahead and mark complete, and that then will take you back to your application forms menu or application forms. Now, this afternoon's session is going to go into environmental assessments. We're going to skip those for now, and we're going to go touch on other attachments. So you'll go click on that, and this page is going to show up. So you'll see this add button up top. This area is for to add any EA materials that you'll be required to attach, any additional grant interest forms, weed plans, maps, anything like that, photos, you name it, anything that you want to add and couldn't fit somewhere else and where provided, you can attach those documents here. Once you click add, you'll hit a little box that will have a browse button. Go click and find your file. Once you hit browse, enter a description or the name of the file, and once you're there, then click save. Repeat this step for each attachment that you need. Once done, you'll click mark as complete, and then your project is done. So once you get to this page, you know you're ready to hit submit when you have check marks going all the way down. Okay, if they're not going all the way down, that means you missed something, and you should go back and check that out and review that section, mark it as complete, and then come back to this page. Once you're ready, you'll click submit, and you have now completed your grant. Now we're going to go into some forms that for both the education and research funding opportunities that weren't similar or weren't like local cooperatives. To start with is the objectives and evaluation for your education and development grants. So you're going to provide a plan of work. This should be, your objectives will need to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. And how are you going to evaluate your plan of work? Okay, how are you going to take a look at its effectiveness, its impacts, and the benefits that your project will have? Next is for research and methodology and analysis. So you're going to provide your research methodology. This again should be specific objectives that you will be accomplishing and how you're going to get there, how those are going to be carried out. And then data analysis. How are you going to take or look at the results of your data from once you've, how are you going to analyze that data that you've collected, and or how are you going to analyze that collected data? So then next form that you will see with research is dissemination. Okay, list any potential journals, publications in which the results will be published. Literature cited or references can be attached as documentation and other attachments. So you want to be able to, how are you going to, what are you going to print any material or plan any publications that as a part of these results or as a part of your project? And dissemination, how are you going to get that out to the end user or to the on-the-ground manager? So what are you going to, how are you going to take what you've learned or the results from your research project and research grant and get that to the people who, from weed managers to the public on how to or whatever. So you're going to describe that here. With that, and that's kind of, that pretty much covers all the forms. Here are some resources. Due to COVID this year has been great in a ways that we've been having a lot more virtual trainings for a lot of these different resource opportunities. Currently, the Montana Department of Agriculture's pesticide training is offering a lot of good trainings, targeting people who need to get credits to maintain their pesticide or applicator's license. And so those are also open and available for others who maybe don't need credits to do that. So it's a great way. There's a lot of trainings out there. If you need help finding them, please call. We know if we can point you in the right direction depending on what you're looking for. With that, any questions? We had a few in the chat. Is regarding herbicides is make sure you read the label and that you look at the rates of chemical per weed that you're looking to target, and don't always use the higher rate. Don't always use the higher rate. No, as there may be soils or other conditions that may prevent that. Excuse me. Don't always list the higher rate. Approved on the label. The rate needs to be appropriate for the site and weeds that you're treating. You can contact your extension, your weed district, or MDA as resources if you're unsure about rates. We had a question as whether you will have to put herbicides and rates in an education and development grant, and no, you won't need to. There isn't that herbicide worksheet for that. And again, to reiterate, if you're have an existing project and you're looking to either add an herbicide or extend your project boundaries, you'll need to do an amended EA for that, and please just email me and I can get you that documentation so you can enter that in and get it in. And you're not redoing the whole EA for the whole project area, you're doing an EA just for either the herb to address the new herbicide or the new area being added into your project site, or into your existing project area. We had a great question as if, say you have an existing grant and you wish to add a new herbicide, that can't be done until the next grant cycle. So if you're partway through a project and are going, oh, we really like to add herbicide X. Well, you can't add herbicide X until you do the next grant application cycle or grant cycle, and you'll need to put your herbicide on that, and you would have to do an amendment in order to do that. we can't add new herbicides partway through an approved grant. And again, if you have any questions beyond this, please email me at Greta, Greta, period, Digge, DIGE, @mt.gov, and I will gladly answer any other questions you may have. Thank you.